Hello, everyone. I hope everyone's having a great Labor Day weekend. We have a lot to talk about with Major Hurricane Larry, as well as yet another system in the Gulf of Mexico, and also a possible severe threat coming up for the Northeast by midweek. So if you do like weather-related content, please subscribe to my channel, as I will upload daily updates to keep you ahead of the storm. So let's get right to it. This is your overall hazard map for this morning for September the 4th. What we're looking at here is we got excessive heat watches down in parts of California, as well as Louisiana. Unfortunately, they still have 700,000 people in Louisiana without power, and it's been a week since Ida, and it could be an additional 1 to 2 weeks before all the power is restored for that region. And then we also have flash flood watches in parts of Kansas as well as Missouri today, out ahead of a cool front that's dropping some heavy rain. That's going to be pushing south. So what we're looking at in the tropics, we have a lot going on. You can definitely see there's Larry. It's got a formidable eye. This is a major hurricane out here, fortunately, and out in the middle of the open waters. There's the system in the midsection of the country ahead of that cold front here that's dropping some very heavy rain right now in parts of Kansas City as well as Missouri. That will continue pressing southward throughout the weekend. But we also have Invest 91L down here in the Yucatan. You can see we've got some more convection starting to fire up. But all this instability is going to be heading north into the Gulf of Mexico. And as this cold front drops down, it's actually going to meet and come together. And we could be looking at another possible Gulf system forming, close near land by midweek. So let's get into it. Here's Larry. So this is a formidable storm. It is now a major hurricane, category 3. And it's continuing to expect to remain a major hurricane all the way until Bermuda. It gets dangerously close to Bermuda. This track has been shifting just a slightly little bit further west with almost every update. So it's putting Bermuda and closer into the eye of this system. And it's going to be a massive storm. It's going to be approaching Bermuda. So they could be impacted in a big way, especially, but it looks like it's going to be traveling just east. But this is by Thursday. You can definitely see it's supposed to ramp up into a category 4 hurricane in just 36 hours from now. So this is one of these storms that's accumulating what they call ACE points. This is accumulated cyclonic energy in the atmosphere. And this calculates every 6 hours. It's kind of a metric that they use at the end of the season, and how much energy tropical systems have took place. And this is one of those storms. It's going to rack up a lot of ACE points because it's going to remain a major hurricane for a long period of time as this continues moving off into the west northwest. So let's get into that system down here near the Caribbean. Right now, it's got a 30% chance of forming into a tropical system. You saw the convection, and it's going to be going into the Gulf of Mexico. But as it meets that cold front, there's a stationary boundary here. We could be looking at tropical conditions starting to become more favorable by that Tuesday and Wednesday time frame. And that's when I do feel we're going to be looking at a possible another tropical system trying to get its act together in the Gulf of Mexico by midweek. So let's take a look at what's going on right now. This is your overall map for Saturday. And you can definitely see the cold front that's depicted on this solid blue line. And out ahead of it, we've got some formidable storms right now in Kansas and Missouri. That's going to be dropping southeast later on today in parts of Oklahoma, as well as southern Missouri and northern Arkansas. There's that stalled boundary along into the Gulf. And then you can look where it's depicted here with that red and the blue here. That's indicative of a stationary front. So that's a stalled front. And a lot of times when you have a stalled front out in the open waters of the Gulf, you can get low-level circulation forming out of those stalled fronts. And then we also have that instability moving in from the Yucatan going into the Gulf of Mexico. So all that energy is going to kind of come together by that Tuesday, Wednesday time frame. And that's when the National Hurricane Center is hinting at conditions can become a lot more favorable for tropical development. So as we move into the day on Sunday, there's that cool front dropping down. It's going to be approaching the Dallas-Fort Worth area with some much needed rain. We're not talking that much rain, but at least some opportunities of at least somewhat cooler conditions as some of the rain chances will to increase as along that boundary and along that cool front. There's the station area. You can almost see it's trying to form a low by a Sunday time frame. So it's going to be slowly trying to get its act together. But out ahead of it, we're going to have scattered showers and storms out ahead of this cool front. And by that Monday time frame, you can definitely see there's that southern cool front down here in the south. It's already starting to stall out towards Dallas. I think it's going to be further south than what this model says. But yeah, a lot of the rain is going to be pushed further south into south of Dallas by the time Monday rolls around. That's your Labor Day. But then all the action will be out in the Gulf of Mexico as that boundary is going to be stalled out here in the Gulf of Mexico. And I think by then it's going to be starting to get its act together. While we've got a trough setting up in our northern states, that's going to play a role on what's going to happen with Larry. And I'll show you that here in a little bit. So let's take a look at this. Here's the water vapor imagery for that Tuesday time frame. So this orange here, that's indicative of that drier air or that trough that's going to be digging in further off into the south. We've got a lot of instability back behind it. That's the first initial cool front, but here's the second initial cold front dropping some heavy rain into parts of Wisconsin, getting into Michigan. That's the day on Tuesday. As we look to the south here into the Gulf of Mexico, that's where that verticity is trying to get its act together, and it's going to meet with this boundary. There's Larry. I mean, look, it's a formidable eye out here. Here's Bermuda, and this is going to continue moving west northwest as we go through the day on that Tuesday time frame. So here's Wednesday. This is when things start to get really interesting. We start to see Larry continue shifting off into that west northwest trajectory. Going to be getting dangerously close to Bermuda. The eye is expected to travel just to the east of Bermuda, but they still could be looking at packing a punch on the island over there. So definitely be prepared for that. As we look down to the south here, you can definitely see a lot more instability down here in the Gulf, combining with that cool front. And I think that's when this is going to be starting to get it's really act together. We already know these waters down here are plenty warm. We just dealt with this with Ida, and unfortunately this is the last thing you want to see in places into Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, and the Florida Panhandle. You guys just got hit hard with Ida, but we definitely look like we could have another tropical system forming in and along the Gulf of Mexico, combining with that invest and that cool front coming through. I think all that energy is going to come together, and by the time we get into that Wednesday time frame, we could be looking at a tropical system really starting to develop in that region. But I'm concerned to the north. Yes, I think as this continues lifting off, that trough is going to be able to steer Larry safely away from the northeast. But ahead of that, we got that trough, and that's the instability. And we're looking at, here's the setup on the 500 millibar pattern. You can definitely see we've got that trough going to be digging into the northeast. Out ahead of it, we could be looking at some severe weather along into the northeast. And I'll show you here that in a little bit. There's Larry almost off the screen here, and there's Bermuda. As this comes up and as this trough continues to dive southeast, that's going to help steer Larry safely away from the northeast coast, as we could have Mindy down here in the south forming into a tropical system by then. But we also have a ridge that's going to be building in on the backside of as Larry swings off and as this trough will move off the coast. This is going to play a factor down the line as we move forward after we get rid of Larry in this system by midweek. So there's a lot to talk about. But by Wednesday, yes, some of these parameters, this is not official on the Storm Prediction Center site yet, but some of the severe weather models that I'm looking at, we've got a lot of instability coming together. Cape values are high, dew points are high in the Northeast, and unfortunately, with that trough digging in, we could be looking at a severe weather day coming up for places in Maryland, Delaware, parts of southern PA, New Jersey, New York City, all along the 95 corridor. So I'm definitely looking at a possible severe weather threat coming together as we get into the day on Wednesday, and that peak heating of the atmosphere. And your supercell composite index is already showing a lot of instability, and a lot of isolated severe strong thunderstorms could be lining up right along this region. Unfortunately, yes, I know you just went through almost 21 tornadoes in this region. You've gone through a lot of havoc with Ida. There's been can't even count how many casualties. It's been a very sad situation that happened up there with Ida. And unfortunately, it definitely looks like some of the parameters are coming together for some more severe weather that's coming up on the day. This will be that Wednesday time frame, probably late afternoon going into the evening hours ahead of that trough. But once Wednesday gets out of here, it's going to be nice because that ridge is actually going to be building in. Larry is going to be safely pulled away from the coast. There's what it looks like on the water vapor imagery. By the time we get into that Thursday time frame, there's Larry. Man, look at the eye by the time Thursday rolls around. That's a massive eye. This is a big storm, and there's Bermuda. So that's why I mentioned it's going to get dangerously close to Bermuda, packing a punch into Bermuda. But you can definitely see where that trough is and where that instability. It's high and dry in the Northeast on Thursday, as this will swing out, but all the action will be down to the south with this trough. That's going to be keeping this energy moving further north, but it's also could be able to actually almost stall the system and hang it just off the coastline. And if it's able to do that, it's going to stay out in the open waters and really start to get its act together. And we could be looking at a tropical storm, and if not a possible minimal hurricane, if it's able to stay out in the open waters like that, as it would move along that coastline. From Wednesday, Thursday into that Friday time frame, and from, say, Louisiana shifting and getting pulled with this trough as we go into the day on Friday, because this would naturally steer the system eastward as that trough would be digging down. So let's look at the waves. So by the time we get into that Friday time frame, this is about as close as Larry was going to get to the Northeast coast. But yeah, you can definitely see we're going to have a lot of rip currents and a lot of wave action well off the coast. But they could be looking at some dangerously large swells off the coast here, because I mean, this goes up to 100 feet of wave action. I don't think it gets nearly that. I think 60 feet is probably more realistic. But you can definitely see we could be looking at some extremely large waves offshore with some rip currents along the coastal regions. So definitely be out to look out for that. This is after that severe threat, and on the backside, as that ridge would come in on the day on Friday. There's the ensemble members of the latest GFS model. So as the system continues to push up northward, then yes, we could be looking at a possible tropical storm development. This would probably be a minimal tropical storm, but if it's able to hang off the coast, like I mentioned in that scenario, it would be having more time over water, and it could develop into a minimal hurricane. Is not out of the question with this what would be Mindy. As we take a look at all the models, right now, they're pretty much spread out everywhere because there's no center. There's not much happening. This is the invest coming up, but it's the combination of this cold front that's going to be sagging south. And as this energy meets that cold front, that stalled boundary, and I think that's when a lot of the models are going to really start to come together and have that energy right off the coast there. And we could be looking at another tropical system by the time that, say, Wednesday time frame going into Thursday. And so let's take a look at the latest GFS model. This is the precipitable water index, and I'm kind of favoring this particular model at the moment with this system. This is what makes the most sense to me, as it would be coming up with that stalled front offshore. And if this is able to stall off the coast, it could be looking at a tropical system taking advantage of those warmer waters. We are going to have a lot of shear in this environment. But if it's able to can kind of combine together, this could spin up into a, like I said, a tropical system, if not a minimal hurricane by the time we get into that Thursday, Friday timeframe. And that's what the latest actually GFS model is actually implying. We could be looking at a tropical system forming right off here into Louisiana. And as it gets stalled off the coast, and as it would more or less push it eastward as we go through that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday timeframe, this could develop into a minimal hurricane right off the coast and have heavy rain impacts into Louisiana, into Mississippi, into Alabama, into the Florida panhandle, as this would shift off the coast as the ridge starts building back into the northeast. And that's on September the 10th. So I was going to show you this map with the ridge building in. With the ridge building in, it would naturally steer the storms closer into land. And I'd even see, I mean, this particular model again actually shows that with the ridge building back as yet another tropical system possibly coming in from the Caribbean and forming to that time frame. So right now, I'm just going to show you the ridge that it was going to be moving these systems, closer to the coast. But yeah, it's very active season right now. I mean, this is your busiest time of year into the tropics. So this after Larry goes through and after what Mindy comes through, the ridge is going to be building back into Southeast Canada, and that's going to naturally steer what's coming off the coast of Africa, what's coming off of the Caribbean, closer into the United States again, unfortunately. So I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video. Definitely leave your comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel to catch the latest update where I protect you before and after the storm.